afternoon, everyone. Happy Monday. I hope everyone had a great weekend, and thank you for joining us today. Before I turn it over to Steve and our lovely panelists of presenters, I'm going to introduce Danielle Doyle from our partners at Essential Ed to say a few things. So, Danielle.
Well, hi everyone, and thank you for having me here today. I'm Danielle Doyle, as Bethel said, President of Essential Education, and we are proud to partner with COABE and to support this important conversation. The work being shared today by the Petey Greene Program and RTI International really connects with what we believe in at Essential Education, and that's making learning accessible for every adult, no matter where they are on their path. Next slide. So whether someone's learning from home, in a classroom, or in a correctional facility, our goal is the same. It's to help them stay motivated, engaged, and making progress, and ultimately open new doors for their future. And we've had the privilege of partnering with Petey Greene and seeing firsthand how their team uses data and evaluation to improve education for incarcerated learners. And their commitment to continuous improvement is inspiring, and it's the kind of work that drives us too. Next slide. So we focus on helping learners reach their goals through our comprehensive learning programs that cover adult basic education, ABE, high school equivalency, HSE, and workforce readiness. And we support corrections and reentry programs with both online and offline options designed for secure environments. So the learning doesn't stop if there's no internet, it keeps going. And when programs use our platform, they get access to TABE Academy and CASAS Academy, so covering TABE 13-14 and CASAS goals with practice tests and data that automatically sync into the teacher's dashboard. GED Academy and HiSET Academy with over 5,000 practice activities and certified practice tests that mirror the real exams. Work Essentials, which helps learners find, get, and keep jobs while building the soft skills they need to thrive in the workplace. And they also earn badges and certifications along the way, so they have those skills to show employers their progress. Computer Essentials, which builds everyday digital skills from basic computer use and online safety to using workplace applications. Almost every job in today's workplace requires some sort of tech know-how, and this program gives learners the confidence to use digital tools effectively. And then there's Money Essentials, which helps learners learn how to budget, save, plan for long-term financial stability so they can make informed decisions and become financially independent. And each of these programs helps learners build the skills they need to successfully transition back into their communities and reduce recidivism rates. And all of it's powered by our prescriptive learning system. So our prescriptive learning technology, oops, I'm sorry, I think we're on slide 4 now. Our prescriptive learning technology is a big part of what makes our program so effective. It starts by identifying what each learner already knows, and then understands what they still need to learn. And from there, the system automatically creates a personalized learning path for those learners. And that way they can focus on areas they need and not waste the time essentially on what they already know. And it helps keep them engaged, helps them make quicker progress, and it makes life easier for instructors too. So we have built-in reporting tools that makes it simple for teachers and administrators to track progress and see results in real time. And the instructors can quickly see which skills have been mastered, who needs extra support, and how much time they are spending in the program. And administrators can easily pull reports to show outcomes to funders or meet compliance requirements. So no juggling spreadsheets or extra systems. Everything is right there in one easy to use platform. Next slide. And we are seeing incredible results. So for example, one of our partners, Rio Salado, achieved 243 HSE completions last year using Essential Education. And we've highlighted their success in an impact report that will be included in COABE's follow-up emails after the webinar. It's a great example of what can happen when educators have the right tools to support their learners. And I'll leave you with 2 voices from the report. I won't read the whole testimony, but just a couple snippets. One student said that the Essential Education program has helped me improve my English skills, complete my high school equivalency diploma, and reach my academic goals. And then the instructor said the evaluation and progress tracking tools built into the program have been very useful in guiding my instruction, class management, and goal setting. And that is the kind of progress that keeps us motivated every day. And that's all I have for you. So thank you again, COABE and the Petey Greene Program and RTI for leading such an important conversation. And if you'd like to learn more about Essential Education and how we can support your program, visit essentialed.com, where you can scan the QR code on your screen for a quick demo. And enjoy that webinar, everyone. I'm going to turn it over to Steve.
Thank you so much, Danielle, and big thank you to Essential Ed for sponsoring today's webinar. Well, it is my great delight to introduce those who will be speaking as a part of the panel today. We really have an all-star cast for you. Let me introduce, starting with Jeff Abramowitz, who is the CEO of the Petey Greene Program and the past executive director of the Justice Partnerships and executive director of Reentry Services for JEVS Human Services. Jeff also sits on the executive board of COABE, where he serves as secretary and chairs the State Advocates for Adult Education Fellows Program. Thank you, Jeff. And also Dr. Chiara Benetolo, who's also with Petey Greene. She is the executive director of the Center for Educational Justice at Petey Greene, where she leads research, evaluation, and national pilot initiatives expanding access to quality education for incarcerated and formerly incarcerated learners. We also have today Samuel J. Skaggs, who is the Senior Program Manager and Research Analyst at RTI International. And Samuel serves as an evaluator and technical assistance provider to nonprofit organizations, state and local agencies, and criminal legal system actors who work with systems impacted individuals. And then also from RTI, we are fortunate to have Samantha Tosto, and she is a justice researcher in the Corrections and Reentry Research Program at RTI. Her research interests include program evaluation, reentry and community-based services, behavioral treatment programs, officer training, community perspectives of law enforcement, and legal system responses to violence. So thank you to our panelists today for being here, for presenting today's webinar, and I will turn things over to Jeff.
I will turn them to Sam. How's that? There you go, Sam.
Great. Can you all hear me? Perfect. Well, welcome and thanks for joining this webinar. Again, my name is Sam Skaggs. I'm with RTI International. I'm going to be transitioning slides for the group. The title of the webinar is Furthering Organizational Capacity and Evaluation Readiness, Lessons Learned from an Evaluability Assessment of the Petey Greene Program's College Bridge and College Tutoring Programs. And I wanted to quickly thank the Petey Greene Program for their partnership on this project and for allowing us to learn so much from them these past 11 months. I also wanted to thank the Coalition on Adult Basic Education and Essential Education for facilitating this webinar. So the goal of this webinar is to provide organizations with recommendations to further their own organizational capacity and evaluation readiness by drawing on a case study from a research partnership between the Petey Greene Program and RTI International. We hope the outcome of today's webinar are that you all are able to learn a little bit more about the role and the importance of evaluability assessments in determining whether a program is ready for a more rigorous or comprehensive evaluation, identify common challenges associated with evaluation readiness, and provide some recommendations for capacity building priorities and how to better prepare for a future evaluation. And just as an overview for this webinar, Jeff and Chiara from the Petey Greene Program team will talk a little bit about their organization and the services they provide through the College Bridge and College Tutoring programs. And then I'll talk a little bit about how organizations become evaluation ready, which will include some basic definitions for folks who may not be aware, and then some common elements of evaluation readiness. And then we'll get into some more details of our current evaluability assessment with the Petey Greene Program and what it entailed, which my colleague Samantha will cover. And then finally, how it informed recommendations for capacity building that we think may be applicable to other growing organizations and programs. And then, of course, we'll leave some time for Q&A at the end. And then additional things goes to Jeff for monitoring the Q&A chat and selecting questions for us to answer. Since we've already provided introductions, I'm going to go ahead and move past this. And I will hand it over to Kiara, who's going to provide some more information about the Petey Greene Program and the services that these two programs offer.
Actually, you're going to hand it to me, and that's okay.
Oh.
You'll get to Kiara in a second, but good afternoon, everybody. And thanks, Sam. Thanks, Samantha. This program is, I've been looking forward to this for a lot of reasons, but the biggest reason is that one of my favorite sayings in the world is a person without data is just another person with an opinion. And the more that we can get data to support the great work that we're doing, the better our programs and stronger our programs are going to be, not only in impact, but also in getting funding and securing additional funding, which is so important today. I am the proud CEO of the Petey Greene Program, which is the largest multi-state provider of educational support services in the country, if not the world. And our motto is really simple. We are there to support those individuals that have either been incarcerated or formerly incarcerated, and we work with them to get smarter. And smarter to us is anything from high school equivalency to basic reading and math to securing that trade certification program. And we use one-on-one tutoring in order to get there. Most of our volunteers are college students from around the country. So not only are we helping get people smarter, but we're also changing culture by giving people an opportunity to see a world that they may never have an opportunity to see. We can go to the next one. The Petey Greene Program has been around 15 years. We're 15 years young. We were founded here at Princeton University, and we've serviced over 20,000 students. We are in many educational sites across the country with 8,500 volunteers plus and over 40 universities where we're making change. And again, it's students that are doing it, students both behind the walls that are getting smarter and students that are in the colleges and our volunteers that are helping people reach their educational goals. We go to the next one. Our tutoring involves everything from general high school equivalency, GED support, basic math, ESL support, workforce certifications, college courses, and digital literacy. One of the things you're going to be hearing a lot about today is our College Bridge program, which I'm proud to say is the mother of that program. Kiara Benatola is on today, and you're going to hear right from Kiara. But what an amazing program, helping people bridge from high school into college so that not only are they ready for college, but they're ready to succeed in college. We used, again, one-on-one virtual and live tutoring sessions in order to help people meet them where they are to attain their educational goals. You go to the next one. The College Bridge program, I'm actually going to hand this to Kiara because she's the mother of this wonderful program, which has been around and has now become a staple of the Petey Greene organization. Kiara, you want to share a little bit about the College Bridge program?
For sure. Thank you, Jeff. So College Bridge is a semester-long program that, like the name suggests, bridges the gap between high school education and college enrollment. We want people to be prepared to access college, and also we want them to also be able to, once they are admitted, to get started with credit-bearing courses without having to take too many developmental or remedial courses that take time, are often frustrating, also consume precious Pell Grants. The program includes a math and a writing course that are and incorporates both instruction and tutoring. So students meet once a week with our instructors and then another time with tutors, really getting both the content delivery as well as the individualized educational support that helps them feel more confident in themselves and helps them see themselves as a college material. We have offered it, like Jeff said, for the past 5 years. in all sorts of formats, from virtual to in-person to blended. Any format you can think of, we've offered the College Bridge program across state facilities, federal, as well as a couple of county jails. And we can go to the next slide. Last year, looking at the history of our organization, we felt that it was time to start investing more in research and evaluation. Our field, the field of higher education in prison, is a field in which there is a wealth of experience and anecdotal knowledge, but there isn't always the research and the evidence to back up those intuitions. So that's what we created the Potsdamer Center for Educational Justice for. The center aims to identify and promote best practices in the field of carceral and reentry education, with a focus on what is the Petey Greene Program's niche, that is meeting students where they are and supporting them in their journey, providing sort of holistic academic support for them. And we were very fortunate to receive a grant from Atheneum that funded the expansion as well as the evaluability assessment for our College Bridge and our College Bridge tutoring program. So I also want to pause for a moment to really acknowledge the investment that Atheneum made in our vision and in the vision of the College Bridge program, but also in the importance of having the data to prove out its effectiveness. That's what led us to work with RTI to really take a look at our data practices, policies, our data culture, to see, are we ready to take the next step, and what do we need to do in order to take the next step towards a fuller evaluation. And I'm going to pass it on to RTI to talk about the work they've done with us.
Great, thanks, Kiara and Jeff. So first, I really just wanted to talk a little bit about evaluation and what it really means to be prepared for one in this capacity. So you can think of an evaluation as a formal process of studying the implementation of a program or practice as an organization intends that it will be operated from the onset, or determining the effectiveness of a specific program or model. So in other words, is the Petey Greene program doing what it set out to do with these two particular programs? And what effect is it potentially having on participating learners' academic achievement and other important outcomes? And when thinking about the timing for an evaluation, I really did want to draw everyone's attention to two different types. You can think about them as formative or summative evaluations. Formative evaluations occur during the program development stage, and ensure that the program is planning to and will actually achieve its objectives as the program developers had initially intended. Whereas a summative evaluation is conducted once the program is up and running, and this is when we look to see how well the program does in terms of what it set out to do, summarizing everything really up to that point. And I raise this distinction because I do think that evaluability assessments should be more formative in nature and provide the program developers with interim feedback about their evaluability growth areas along the way, instead of waiting until the end of the assessment to provide those recommendations. So typically when someone hears about an evaluation, it's not uncommon to think of an outcome study, which measures how well a given program works or is effective at achieving its goals with its participants. A process study, though, assesses how a program is operating compared to how it was intended or planned to be operated, with a focus really on building a strong program model. And another type of evaluation is something called a cost study, which identifies the cost of running the program or providing a service, and can be further broken down into how much it really costs to help each participant. And you can think about these types of evaluations as building on each other, where the information collected and conclusions drawn from a process study can be, therefore connected to outcomes to help support more of an outcome evaluation. And if you find that a program is effective, you can start identifying the costs incurred to run the program and to potentially expand it. So evaluations are really important for the growth of a program, and they allow an organization to understand its program operations better and to measure the impact of a given service or services. But there are things that a program really needs in order to be evaluated. And just as a few examples, program operations might need to be more clearly outlined or be more consistently implemented across different places to the extent possible. There might need to be clearer protocols for program operations and staff roles and data capacity and adherence to a data culture and collecting information, which can help aid in better understanding the impact of the program. This also becomes more important if an organization has turnover and new staff need to be trained on program operations and protocols. In an organization, it's really important that it understands its growth areas and the type of evaluation is best suited for at that given time. Really, when thinking about investing money into a more rigorous and more comprehensive evaluation to validate the model. So we determine evaluation readiness through a number of factors, which we'll describe in more detail here in the next slides. But for now, we're really looking at if an organization has the capacity to be evaluated. Do they have the necessary information, or can that information be collected to answer really important questions about the program's implementation or its effectiveness? It typically involves a period of essentially cataloging an organization's define goals, their resources for a program, the staff culture, the operational procedures for different responsibilities and staff roles. And that also includes data collection processes. And like many things, evaluation readiness is not a black or white concept, but more of a continuum with certain categories of needs. So as for some examples, it's really important that a program developer is able to articulate the program model, for example, what operations are supposed to look like, or what services are provided, what resources are needed to run the program, what are the intended products or outputs of the program, and the envisioned outcomes of participating in or completing the program. The other way that you can think about this is the theoretical logic for why a given program or service should have a positive effect on a learner's outcomes. Is there a theoretical basis for tutoring to improve the academic goals of learners who are incarcerated? They should also articulate enrollment procedures and the program capacity. How many people can the program serve in a given semester, as an example? You can also look at whether the program delivery aligns with written protocols or operational procedures that the organization has developed, or whether you have the support and the resources from program leadership. And I also want to add that it is also incredibly important to have buy-in from program staff and their academic, correctional, or other partners. And among other reasons, we need buy-in from other partners because we may ultimately need to collect information from them or obtain approvals to gain access to program participants behind the prison fences. And it's also important to understand how any information that the program and participants that is collected, stored, and managed by the designated staff with the organization. So an evaluability assessment is really an initial step prior to conducting process, outcome, or cost evaluations. It can also help to establish a strong foundation for those types of studies when the time comes. And it can really be a great way to determine which types of evaluations are more suitable for that organization at that point in time. The purpose of which, again, is to conserve resources that would eventually be dedicated to evaluation. As an example, it might not make sense to jump straight into conducting an outcome study if you're unable to collect critical information on program participation or their intended outcomes. Without this information and a valid comparison group, an organization may experience difficulties with explaining what it is about the program that led to a given positive effect compared to business as usual practices. And an organization's readiness really depends on where the program is at in their existing infrastructure. Are they newer? Are they more established? Is there an evidence base behind what they're implementing? Some programs are smaller and may only staff a small team of people who are responsible for managing the program, collecting information on participants, managing a grant potentially to fund the program, whereas other programs are well established and funded through multiple funding streams to sustain their operations. But an evaluability assessment can help identify growth areas and workable solutions towards addressing those needs. So now we're going to dive more into like the different elements needed to become evaluation ready. So we'll discuss each of these in greater detail on subsequent slides, but growing organizations that are implementing promising practices should always be thinking about these 5 elements for both formative evaluation and really your growth, as well as necessary prerequisites for a summative evaluation. And as a quick disclaimer, this list is not exhaustive, but these are some common areas that we see a lot in our work as pain points for becoming evaluation ready. So first, you really do need to have a clear program model. You also want to be serving a sufficient number of participants or provide your services to enough individuals that you can measure impact, if that is really your goal. It's also really important to have a stable program, one that's well-defined and delivered relatively consistently or in the same way every time. That can also be really vital. And then you also want to make sure that you collect enough information and store and manage it correctly and securely to be able to track how learners progress through the program over time. And then lastly, you want to create an organizational culture where leadership support these efforts and staff buy into the importance of these concepts and of evaluation more broadly. So as one component, a clear program model is really key to an evaluability assessment and to an organization's success. You can think of questions like, is it easy or logical to see a learner's progression through the program from start to finish? Can you tell what the progression is or how it's being measured? For an evaluability assessment, we want to make sure that the model and its components are well defined with consistent application to all types of participants and contexts. The consequences of a constantly changing program model is that it can be more challenging to link what happened with the program to the participants' outcomes. Where a program is changing, it can be important to document the circumstances where the program curriculum varies across place or over time. And as an example, you may want to, or you may not want to lump learners who are participating in an abridged version of a program in jail with participants who are participating in the program in a prison, given that the structure might be slightly different within those two contexts. I think the same can be said about correctional education programs being implemented across different security levels, with more secure facilities having more restrictions on what's permitted and how the program is operated in those given facilities. And we'll come back to the stability of the program here in a little bit, but I think this exercise is important to understand everything that goes into a program with respect to the resources, the program activities, the expected outcomes, the goal of the program. It also helps establish and map out, document what types of data, whether it's administrative records on numbers of hours spent working with the program curriculum, participant or partner feedback, or staff perceptions about the facilitators and the barriers to program implementation that would be needed to connect the program participation with the intended outcomes. I think it's also important that a program has strong enrollment. A common challenge that we see when supporting practitioners and program developers is that programs don't have strong enrollment, will find it difficult to adequately measure impact. If it's still early days with your program, this isn't a deal breaker by any means. This just may be an issue with respect to like being able to assess impact. Your goal may be to first investigate how the program is being implemented and whether it's being implemented with fidelity to the program goal. If you're hoping to investigate if a program is effective, then you will need to have sufficient numbers. With an evaluability assessment, this typically involves documenting the enrollment and the eligibility processes, and even the average length of stay or time between touch points. So when someone has expressed interest, how long does it take before they receive information about the program and they can be enrolled in the program? This type of exercise may require obtaining program documentation, holding interviews with program staff to learn more about the enrollment procedures from start to finish, and how potential individuals are recruited, or even reviewing administrative records on enrollment to the extent that that information exists. And again, the consequences is just an organization can't be confident in the findings if there is not an adequate number of participants on which to assess impact. So we want to see if statistical analyses being completed have enough people in both the treatment and comparison or control group, or a large enough sample size to make a fair conclusion about the effectiveness of a program. We often employ analyses called power analyses for this purpose, which detect an effect if one exists, and to ensure that the study yields meaningful results and again avoids wasting resources. As an example that we have up here, with this scenario, you might ask if you are more likely to trust one person who tells you that a given restaurant is the best in the city, or 1,000 people. Maybe that one individual has really bad taste, but with 1,000 people, you're closer to knowing if that restaurant is good, or even or not, given the consistency of the estimate. The example here gives another power or sample size example. So which product are you more likely to pick? The one with over 89,000 ratings, or the one with 108 ratings? For this reason, it is really important to understand the number of participants needed to power the analyses and to increase enrollment to the extent possible over a given period of time without compromising the quality of the program. And this can help program teams know if they need to somehow strengthen recruitment efforts and the type of evaluation that might be most suited for them. I think another pillar of evaluability is program stability, which I kind of alluded to earlier, but there are a lot of ways that a program curriculum can be changed, and for very good reasons. An organization might receive grant funding to expand a program, but then that funding goes away and the services change. However, not having standard procedures to follow, having multiple partners or same staff within the same organization, kind of duplicating efforts or kind of filling the same role, or even experiencing changes to how services are offered can all impact your evaluation readiness. The consequences of this challenge is that it just can be difficult to understand the program's implementation or the impact if services keep changing. So you might know that the program worked, but you can't really pinpoint what had the specific effect on participants' outcomes, again, if things are continually changing. An evaluability assessment, though, can help explore the needs, the challenges, and the barriers associated with the program, as well as how operations differ across place, where operations might be inconsistent within the same context, and just try to resolve program variation to the extent possible, or at least try to document where it does happen so that can be considered for the analyses. Data capacity is the next pillar of evaluability that I wanted to touch on. When we measure data capacity, we're really trying to learn how well an organization stores, manages, and accesses their data. Is it a relatively quick process? Is it convoluted and only a few select people know how to enter in or extract information from a data management system? Are multiple people entering data? Another big question is, what does an organization need to collect for operational purposes versus for the evaluation? These are all really important considerations for knowing, what we can obtain from the program and what we'll need to request of the organization's partners. One common challenge for an evaluation is not having a strong data management system, which can make it difficult to use information collected on clients. And this can include information on demographics or their services received. And this helps to determine fidelity to the program model as well as the potential impact. So you might ask questions such as, do designated staff know what information to collect, where to enter it? Are they all entering it in the same place and in the same way? And I think most importantly, are there quality assurance or quality checks that can be built into the process to ensure more accurate data entry? Some other questions might be, do staff consistently collect all necessary data when engaging with the participants? And can this information be accessed on a regular basis to report out to the team? An EA can help identify what data are collected, whether they are collected consistently, and how it's stored and managed by designated staff. It can also involve review of data collection practices, management, and secondary data, as well as interviews with key staff to understand these processes. And finally, having buy-in from relevant partners is extremely important to ensuring all the information needed is collected and that involved individuals are committed to the evaluation. And with respect to leadership support and general staff buy-in, we see that it can be difficult to access the resources necessary to assess a program's implementation and impact. And as a few examples, researchers may rely on program staff to implement program to fidelity or support with tracking information needed for the evaluation, such as time spent on task or hours spent in tutoring or in the program. How many different modules did they participate in? With respect to partners, we may need approval from our correctional partners to enter facilities in order to collect data from participants and other relevant stakeholders. We might ask if all involved parties support research and evaluation of the program, or are they committed to strong data and organization practices? The consequences to the evaluation if these are not followed is that leadership and staff may not be committed to a strong process. Other pieces of evaluation readiness tend to fall through. So the program might not reach its enrollment targets. We might not get access to data and information needed for the evaluation. An objective of the evaluability assessment is really engaging leadership, staff, and key stakeholders to establish rapport and buy into the evaluation before we actually get to that point. This may involve reviewing how leadership of an organization, their partners, or their staff view current organizational practices, and then specifying the resources such as the length of time required for an evaluation. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Samantha to introduce and discuss a case study of an evaluability assessment of the Petey Greene Program's College Bridge and College Tutoring Program.
Thanks so much, Sam. So as Sam alluded to, we're now going to transition a little bit from talking about what evaluability assessment is, more generally to our actual case study. And so we'll summarize the activities that we conducted as well as the general findings so that we can then talk lessons learned and how they might apply to your organization's capacity building as well. Next slide, please. So when designing the evaluability assessment of Petey Greene's College Bridge and Tutoring programs, we developed 5 main questions or areas of inquiry that we wanted to answer, which, as you can see here, align really closely with those 5 pillars of evaluability assessment that Sam just described. So first, what is PGP's theory of change for the College Bridge and Tutoring services? So in other words, what does it mean to be successful in these programs? Either for the student, what does it mean for the student to be successful? Or what does it mean for the program itself to be successful? Second, does PGP consistently enroll students? Is there an adequate number of recorded clients so that we can measure that impact? Third, we want to determine if operational practices align with really how the program is designed on paper, right? So are the models clearly defined and are they practiced with fidelity to the intended model? Fourth, we really wanted to kind of better understand Petey Greene's data capacity, or really their ability to collect, store, manage, and analyze outcomes on students. And then lastly, to understand if staff and leadership support evaluation efforts and the myriad of capacity building activities associated with becoming evaluation ready. Next slide, please. And so in order to answer these questions, we engaged in several activities throughout the course of the last year that really helped us get to these questions. And so first and foremost, we conducted a literature review of evidence-based practices. So what's working in higher education and prison spaces, and does Petey Greene's activities align with those best practices? We also conducted a programmatic review. So Petey Greene was generous enough in sharing a lot of their foundational documentation, their protocols, course syllabi, things like that. And we really evaluated those to determine if their practices align with how the program is supposed to be running, or at least is designed by Petey Greene. Next, we conducted interviews with both Petey Greene's staff, their regional level and national level leadership, to really see how staff felt about College Bridge, about tutoring. So what works, what doesn't work? How do they perceive the evaluation activities that they're preparing for? And then really talking about how to promote effective data management and a data culture across the organization. And then finally, we completed an analysis of instructor assessments and student outcome data. So essentially the administrative data that Petey Greene collects to really determine their evaluation readiness in terms of that data and what the data tells us about Petey Greene's impact. Next slide, please. And so we'll briefly talk about the key findings here. So in general, our literature review did find that Petey Greene's services align with best practices and effective interventions in higher education and prison settings. And so the use of program alumni and peer support, or peers as tutors or support specialists, is really central to program effectiveness. Fostering really strong partnerships with relevant agencies, such as participating correctional facilities, and that generally services such as Petey Greene's that they offer College Bridge and tutoring, which expose incarcerated persons to educational opportunity, can really improve not just academic outcomes, but also things like self-esteem, confidence, and overall well-being, which can then subsequently inform improved reentry outcomes in the long term. Next slide, please. From our programmatic document review, we also really found that Petey Greene services follow programmatic logic models. They have really developed a process that defines their theory of change, or why they believe their services should work. And as you can see in this sort of visual here, the services that Petey Greene offers very much move through this theory of change, or this logic model. And so it begins with the goals and objectives. What does Petey Greene want to provide, and how does it do so? It then moves into defining the resources necessary. So how do we achieve the goals and the actual program activities that are provided to students? And then we look at program activities, or what we call outputs, right? So what are the actual processes that take place? And then lastly, what is the desired outcome? Once all of those things are in place, what do we hope to provide to our students, or what do we hope that incarcerated learners achieve in their higher education or reentry journeys? And so here we show sort of an abbreviated version of what a logic model might look like, or really what Petey Greene's logic model looks like, to kind of help with the visualization of what this is. And so the inputs are the elements needed to get the process going, right? How do we define student eligibility? How do we define staff eligibility? Who can be a tutor? Who can be a student, right? And so who will be part of the program? There's also determining the partners that you'll need to work with, whether that be other service providers or correctional facilities, compiling a list of other resources you might need, right? What space is needed? What equipment is needed? What funding streams are needed, right? These are all sort of the foundational elements that need to be in place before you can begin activities, or the actual programmatic processes that take place. So that's second circle there, right? These are things like the enrollment procedures. How do we get people into the program? Actual program activities. Folks have to attend class. They have to meet with their tutor, things like that. Post-programmatic activities such as closeout procedures, the types of data that you collect on your clients, and the types of prep or that tutors or instructors might need to do in order to effectively deliver programming. Outputs are the direct end product of the program, right? how many students have we enrolled, how many of them complete our courses, what is the dosage of service delivery and the number of programs offered, right? What are those direct end products of the activities in the prior bullet? And then lastly, the outcomes. What are the related longer term consequences that you'd like to see for your clients related to the services that you provide? So perhaps for an organization like Petey Greene, this is the number of college credits they go on to receive, or whether or not they report improved self-confidence, or even system level outcomes such as increased educational opportunities for incarcerated learners, or greater awareness of the importance of educational opportunities for adult learners. And so this logic model is essentially the way that your organization can think through the steps from beginning to end of what your program is intended to be doing. Next slide, please. When we looked at Petey Greene's administrative data, we also identified areas to improve data entry and offered suggestions to maximize their data management abilities. So from this process, we found that Petey Greene collects student and tutor data, such as intake information, right, when folks enroll, gathering that sort of base demographic information, course outcome data, dosage, how many tutoring sessions they receive per semester, and things like that. We also identified several areas of improvement in the program's fidelity and consistency of data entry. So they use really strong data management tools, but there is a need for greater consistency in data collection and entry. And then lastly, we found that sometimes when we use these really great data management tools, they're pretty complicated and convoluted to learn and to use. And so that sort of really high learning curve for staff can be a barrier, right? When you implement a new data program that's meant to streamline your efficiency in your data, there is still the learning curve associated with that. And so being mindful of identifying staff champions or coming up with data management plans that will make that an effective tool for your organization to use long term. Next slide, please. And so we also conducted interviews with several regional and national staff at Petey Greene to really discuss general programmatic operations as well as their data capacity. And these interviews gave us a lot of rich data that supplement what we're able to see in the documents, in the data, right? And really get a good image of what the culture is at the organization. And so we found that staff members are largely bought into PGP's missions and their values and its evaluation, but that more education is needed to understand really the key elements of evaluation and how to build programmatic capacity. We also talked about the importance of a strong data culture. So staff identified a greater desire to know the importance and usefulness of the data that they collect, how and where to adequately store that data, what standards they should be adhering to, and what exactly an evaluation would do for the long-term growth and well-being of Petey Greene. Next slide, please. And so we wanted to really briefly cover what the activities and the findings were so that we could move here to capacity building and moving towards evaluation. The last major section of this webinar is going to cover what the results of an evaluability assessment might be, some recommendations for prioritizing capacity building that we learned from this case study and that can apply to really any organization seeking to build more sustainable practices, and really how to promote growth and evaluation readiness of an organization. And so just to be clear, these recommendations are rooted in the current case study in the evaluability assessment of Petey Greene, but really are meant for any organization who may be in the position that Petey Greene was, right? They wanted to grow their capacity. They wanted to determine their evaluation readiness. And so if that aligns with where you feel your organization or your program is at, this will really kind of describe broad recommendations for any organization looking to build their capacity. And then I'll switch over and hand it off to Kiara, who will describe how they've personally implemented these recommendations and have become evaluation ready. Next slide, please. And so capacity building is done to strengthen a program's foundation and sustainability. there really is no one way to conduct capacity building because every program is going to have their own strengths and areas of growth. However, an evaluability assessment can help identify those unique areas and the priorities that an organization should focus on. So an EA often results in identifying the needs related to evaluation readiness, creating recommendations for how to address these growth areas, and research partners who conduct EAs, such as ourselves at RTI International, help provide support and technical assistance for how to address those needs. Next slide, please. And so we'll briefly cover 4 recommendations for improving your evaluation readiness and generally your overall capacity. So based on the findings of the case study with Petey Greene, we found sort of 4 main recommendations that we want to focus on. And we'll go over these in greater detail in the subsequent slides, but we're really focused on creating standard operating procedures for data collection and management, identifying and using a strong data management tool, establishing effective communication, both within your organization and with external partners, and fostering strong partnerships. Next slide, please. So first and foremost, we really want to delve into what it means to develop standard operating procedures. So standard operating procedures, or SOPs, are the documents that clearly outline written instructions for staff, whether that be on how to perform specific activities, how to deliver a specific program, or their basic roles and responsibilities in their day-to-day work. So essentially, ensuring staff know the expectations of their job, as well as the protocols and processes of the programs in which they work. So SOPs support both formative evaluations, right? Getting evaluation ready and determining your process, as well as general programmatic growth. You're simply just trying to strengthen the programs that you deliver. And so once these protocols have been well defined and you have those documents, it can really help clearly outline the duties and responsibilities associated with that specific job or with a program's related responsibilities. So essentially think of it as a dummy's guide for a specific role or a program in terms of the step-by-step of here's how you would want to get this done. Next slide, please. Our second recommendation is establishing a strong data management tool. It's important to have one singular place for all of your data and to specify or identify a tool that will most help your organization's specific needs. So this might be simply using Excel spreadsheets. It might be getting a contract with a company like Salesforce or Google Workspace or something like that, right? You also want to identify at least one tool champion. Once you've identified your tool, who can we go to when we know that we need some help, right? Who is the staff member that's going to be well-versed in how to use that tool or optimize its effectiveness? So having a champion is going to help those other staff overcome the learning curve that can be associated with using a new tool. And so once you have this tool, you'll also want to develop trainings or any sort of documentation that will help existing staff members better understand how to utilize these tools and how to collect, enter, and store data effectively. It's also really important that once you have data processes in place, that you also create regular quality control processes, right? It's meaningful to be able to collect data. It's also really great when you can use that data later. And that only happens when there are regular checks making sure that the data is being entered consistently across staff or across programs, so that when you do come to a formative or a summative evaluation, you're ready to use that data to measure impact. Next slide, please. Our third recommendation is really about establishing transparency within the organization. As you all know, one of the most important things an organization can have is effective communication from top to bottom. And so you want to make sure that all level of staff understand the growth processes and the strategic plan of the agency and are really adequately prepared for an evaluation. So you want to foster staff and leadership buy-in to stable program practices and protocols. Not just here's what to do every single day, but here's why doing that is so important for our long-term growth. You also want to enhance staff training on programmatic expectations, make sure that there are clear and concise directions at all times, whether that's through 10-minute debriefs before a staff meeting or a lunch and learn, whatever it may be. And then you also want to establish regular report outs about program updates and outcomes across the organization. Even if it's not necessarily directly related to someone's daily duties, it's helpful for them to understand the bigger picture of what's happening at the organization. Next slide, please. And lastly, when it comes to our final recommendation, it's really important, especially for higher education and prison programs that are working within correctional spaces, to create strong external partnerships. You all know that sometimes this can be a very difficult and trying process, so it's key to communicate and work together with agencies to have a mutually beneficial partnership. So it's not just about deciding how to best implement programs with fidelity, it's also about how to do so while meeting the needs of a partner. So there are restrictions depending on the security level of the correctional facility that you're working with, or depending on the needs of the clients within a given entity, right? You're going to have to adapt your program. And so figuring out how to effectively do that is going to be really important. You also want to establish formal data sharing agreements. If you have a strong partnership, maybe you're already sharing data. Hey, you collect this information on the clients that we serve. We would love to take a look. And that's great. But it's also important that you establish these formal partnerships, because things change over time. And so if you're able to have these documented formal protocols, you're going to ensure that you always have that really strong data foundation. You also want to find ways to effectively maximize your access to clients, right? So making sure that if there are overlaps in service delivery or data collection, that you're creating a holistic continuum of service delivery between all of the partnering agencies that'll still result in the best outcomes for your clients. And then lastly, making sure you and your partner organizations understand both the short and long-term outcomes that are helpful for evaluation. And so we're now going to switch. I would love to pass it off to Kiara, who's going to talk about what it means, what it actually looks like when an organization facilitates and implements these recommendations into their own capacity building.
Thank you, Samantha. And so I will offer just a few examples of ways in which we have received RTI's recommendations and put them into practice in our own organization. First of all, diving into their first recommendation of developing standard operating procedures, that we had operating procedures for a number of our tasks, but we really revised all of the job descriptions for our program staff and to formalize them, make them consistent across the organization, and include data collection responsibilities, which are now also included in our performance management process, ensuring that really everybody is accountable for that piece of the work as well. And to provide ongoing support and oversight for that, we have quarterly academic data meetings that bring together our programmatic, our regional staff, and our national staff, strategizing around how data collection going in each region. I'll move on to the next slide. I brought together the second and further recommendation around data management and/or culture, because I think those are closely related in our organization. We use Salesforce for our data collection, and we have a very strong infrastructure for volunteer data, but we are now working to build a similarly strong infrastructure for to collect and analyze student data. That cannot happen without staff. So we were able to hire, again, thanks to the generous grant from Ascendium, a development and evaluation manager last year, and we are planning to hire also a data manager next year to help with that piece. And having a more robust data team also enabled us to now go back to our team and provide more regular reports on what are we doing with this data, what are some preliminary results that we can achieve on the students' performance. And We are also planning to hold regular staff trainings and Learn to Learn series in partnership with RTI, really continue that organizational growth across all the different roles. And finally, building strong partnerships is one of our favorite things at the Petey Greene program. We really could not exist with our partners, but embedding data sharing in those strong partnerships is one of the areas of growth on which we have focused. So we had a pro bono council create template data sharing agreements and also explain to us what's FAFSA covered, what isn't, how can we share this data. We started to include data sharing agreements in all of our MOUs with higher education institutions and with DOCs. We're slowly going on that process. And like Samantha was saying, we found that if you offer ongoing educational support to students pre and post release, that's great for your program, and it's also great for your data collection because it enables you to stay in touch with those students and collect longer term data. So that is also something that we have strengthened in our organization. We started to offer more and more programs that provide that continuum of opportunities for our students. And I believe that concludes our presentation. I want to thank again COID for hosting us and Ascendium for funding the program expansion and the evaluability assessment. And I will open it up for everybody. If you have any questions, thoughts, additional comments.
The floor is open for questions. You can put those in the chat or in the Q&A or unmute and voice those questions. I'm trying to practice good
Done,
wait.
everybody.
Well, it's looking like the presentation was so clear and so straightforward that no one is coming away with any questions. So we will say thank you, everyone, for attending our session today. And a special thanks to our presenters, to Jeff and Kiara and Samuel and Samantha for their excellent and very thorough presentation. And also a huge thank you to Essential Education for sponsoring today's webinar. But thank you all again for your attendance, and we look forward to seeing you at a future COABE webinar. And we will just wish you the best and enjoy the rest of your Monday afternoon. And thank you so much for being with us.